You already know the truth, don't you? You were never meant to struggle, to shrink, to blend into the background. The signs were always there, whispering in moments of doubt, pulling you towards something greater. And now, here you are, standing at the threshold of everything you were always meant to claim. Remember those nights, the ones where you questioned if it would ever get better, if the grind would ever pay off. Look at you now. The tables have turned, the script has flipped, and the same ones who once overlooked you are watching in silence, realizing they underestimated the wrong one. But you're not looking back for validation. You're looking forward because the past has nothing left to offer you. This is your awakening, not just to wealth, not just to power, but to the undeniable truth. You were never ordinary. Every setback, every closed door, every moment you felt unseen, it was all leading here. Because you weren't just another player in this game. You were chosen, destined, and now the proof is undeniable. The realization dawns, not as a quiet whisper, but as a thunderous shift in perception. No longer do you hesitate, measuring every request against a dwindling reserve. Now decisions are made based on merit, not necessity. The numbers on the screen no longer represent mere survival. They embody expansion, a force that pushes forward rather than just holding the line. The past of stretching every resource, of rationing possibility, has dissolved into something unrecognizable. The first monumental shift arrives, and it doesn't just bring relief, it rewires the way reality itself is perceived. Years of cautious restraint collapse under the weight of a newfound certainty. Scarcity is no longer the default setting. The echoes of past limitations fade, each one retreating like shadows chased away by morning light. The moment is tangible, charged with an energy that feels like the breaking of an unspoken curse. This was once an unattainable dream, a distant mirage. Now it stands within reach, undeniable in its presence. What once felt like an unrelenting cycle has fractured, replaced by an open horizon. The weight that once pressed down, tightening every choice, stealing every breath, has lifted. In its place is clarity, a sharp realization that this was never about numbers, but about the power to step beyond imposed boundaries. A door has swung open, revealing a world that was always meant to be claimed. The absence of constant apprehension reshapes everything. Without the weight of looming obligations, the possibilities unfold like an uncharted map, ready to be explored. No longer shackled by forced compromises, the choices are no longer dictated by lack, but guided by vision. The long-standing battle between ambition and constraint has ended, and in its wake, a new era begins, one where stepping forward is no longer a risk, but an affirmation. The past restraints were never permanent. They were merely illusions that no longer hold any power. Now the stage is set, not just for stability, but for expansion, for seizing every path that once seemed out of reach. Clarity sharpens. The path wasn't broken, only obscured. What once seemed like punishment was, in truth, preparation. Every struggle was a sculptor's chisel, carving resilience, shaping determination. The unanswered questions, the closed doors, the moments of uncertainty, they were never denials, only lessons in disguise. The truth was never absence, but alignment, a process unfolding exactly as it was meant to. What arrives now isn't a sudden windfall, but the rightful result of every step taken, every trial endured. There was never a lost cause, only a journey that required patience to reveal its purpose. This moment doesn't just alter personal circumstances, it extends beyond, reverberating into the future. The cycle of limitation has been shattered, never to be reconstructed. No longer entangled in unseen obligations, no longer carrying the weight of inherited struggle. The past's burdens do not dictate the future's shape. Instead, a new legacy is being written, one where depletion is replaced by abundance, where depletion is no longer an expectation. This isn't fleeting fortune. This is transformation at its core, rewriting the very foundation of what was once assumed to be inevitable. A shift has taken place, not just in finances, but in existence itself. The days of reactionary survival are over. This is the era of intentional design. The impact reaches far beyond the present. It stretches into generations yet to come. What was once a relentless cycle of making ends meet has evolved into the conscious creation of a lasting structure. It's not just about accumulation, but about ensuring that those who follow never have to question their security. What was once uncertain is now unwavering. The narrative has changed forever, and with it, so has everything else. The restlessness that once dictated every thought, the relentless tallying of resources, the unshakable dread of the unknown. It has all dissolved. What once felt like an endless balancing act has become effortless, natural. No longer does each day start with worry. Instead, it begins with the quiet certainty that everything is as it should be. Money no longer wields power over emotions or dictates the pace of life. It has become an instrument, a means to craft existence on one's own terms. The urgency of merely getting by has faded, replaced by the clarity to pursue what truly calls to invest energy where it matters most. The weight of scarcity is gone, and in its absence, a new way of being takes root. A deeper realization emerges. Not everyone understands the nature of prosperity. Some chase it endlessly, others fear its presence, unsure of what it means. But this is different. This is not about accumulation or luck. This was always meant to be. The arrival of abundance is not random, nor is it a fleeting moment. It is a confirmation, an affirmation of alignment. Each wave of prosperity is a quiet echo of something already written, a reminder that this path was chosen long before it was walked. This is not about pursuing wealth. It is about stepping fully into the space it was always meant to fill. Wealth is not something to be pursued. It is something to be mastered. It does not control, it does not demand, it does not define. It moves, it expands, it flows through the hands of those who understand its true nature. To command wealth is not to cling to it, but to direct it, to shape it into something greater than the self. It is not a prize or a privilege, it is a tool, a force as fluid as time itself. Those who misunderstand it will try to reduce it to figures, to a system of limitation, convincing the world that it belongs only to those who know how to manipulate its rules. But the truth is far greater. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. There comes a moment when the veil is lifted, when the fog clears and suddenly everything makes sense. The walls that once held you in, the chains that once felt unbreakable, they were never real. They were shadows, distractions, illusions designed to keep you small. But now you see, and once you see, you can never go back to pretending. It's like stepping into the sunlight after living in darkness for years. At first, it's overwhelming, blinding even. But then, your eyes adjust, and for the first time, you realize you were never meant to struggle in the shadows. You were meant to rule in the light. The system was never built for you to win. The rules were never written for your success. They wanted you quiet. They wanted you waiting. They wanted you believing you had to earn your place. But the moment you recognize the truth, the moment you reclaim what was always yours, everything shifts. Because listen to me, freedom was never something to be earned. It was something to be remembered. The power was always inside you. The key was always in your hands. They just convinced you it wasn't. They taught you to doubt, to hesitate, to look outside yourself for permission. But let me tell you something. The only permission you need is the one you give yourself. The old ways no longer hold weight. The invisible ceilings have shattered. The artificial limits have collapsed. You don't live in a world of lack anymore. You don't answer to fear. You don't bow to systems built to keep you bound. The contract has been voided. The cycle has been broken. You are not just surviving. You are stepping into dominion. And that's why they're afraid. Because when you step into your inheritance, when you move like someone who already owns the promise, you change everything. The moment you stop asking, stop waiting, stop seeking approval, you become untouchable. This isn't escape. This is release. You aren't running from anything. You are walking into everything you were always meant for. The weight, gone. The guilt, lifted. The fear, irrelevant. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a reason. You don't owe them a single moment of hesitation. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. Because what is written cannot be erased. What is destined cannot be stolen. What is aligned cannot be taken away. And now, the choice is yours. Will you claim it? The boundaries have shifted, and so has everything else. Giving is no longer an unspoken transaction. Kindness is no longer a currency. Every action is now a choice, not an obligation. Energy, time, and resources are no longer freely offered to those who do not value them. And those who once relied on taking will notice the change. They will resist, they will question, they will accuse, because they do not understand what has happened. But none of that matters. What matters is the clarity, the certainty, the undeniable knowing. This is how it was always meant to be. The shift is irreversible. The attachments that once dictated choices, the expectations that once felt inescapable, they no longer exist. A new frequency has been reached, one where compromise is no longer the price of belonging. The weight of justification has lifted, replaced by an unshakable certainty. No explanations are owed. No validation is required. The years spent adjusting, accommodating, making space for others at the expense of self-worth are over. A new identity has emerged, one that does not seek permission to exist. The days of justifying success are gone. The ones who were absent during the struggles do not suddenly deserve proximity now that the tide has turned. Access is no longer granted freely, and presence is not an entitlement. Those who only appear when the skies are clear will find themselves without shelter when the storm passes. No more overextending, no more carrying the weight of relationships built on convenience. The standard has shifted. Only those who reciprocate, who recognize the balance, remain. There is no guilt in closing doors that were never truly open. Authenticity has become the only measure that matters. Connections that require depletion are no longer called connections. They are transactions, and the debt has been cleared. Genuine support stands on its own, without obligation, without expectation of return. Those who cannot offer what they take, who only show up to receive, will fade into the background where they were always meant to be. Stability is no longer negotiable. The years of accommodating discomfort in the name of peace have come to an end. The foundation has been reset. The past version of existence, the one that tolerated imbalance, no longer remains. This is the moment where unwavering certainty takes its place, where energy is no longer up for barter. Those who cannot meet the standard will question it, misunderstand it, even resent it, but that is no longer a concern. The silent watchers, the ones who have always observed from the edges, who have seen beyond the surface, understand. The ones who move differently, who carry a knowing that cannot be explained, do not seek approval for the path they walk. The time for hesitation is over. Boundaries no longer require permission. The answer is final: no hesitation, no justification, no explanation. Once, the word carried hesitation, softened by concern for how it would be received. Now, it stands alone, unshaken, undeniable. Every concession made at the expense of self has been erased. The era of obligation has ended. Each rejection of imposed expectation is an act of reclamation. What once felt like selfishness now reveals itself as self-respect. The clarity is undeniable. Those who resist, who push back, who attempt to manipulate through guilt, were never meant to remain. They only thrived in spaces where limits did not exist. The transformation is complete. The gates that once stood wide open have closed, and only those who understand their value will find the key. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. There comes a time when the giving stops, when the cycle of overextending, over-explaining, and overcompensating finally breaks. When you look around and realize, not everyone was clapping for you. Some were just waiting to see what they could get. And when the handouts stop, when the access is denied, that's when you see people for who they truly are. See, they were never prepared for this version of you. They were never ready for the day you'd stop knocking on doors that should have never been opened. For the day you'd stop begging people to value what was always priceless. They mistook your kindness for weakness. They mistook your patience for permission. But what they forgot is that every harvest has a season, and your season of freely giving is over. Some doors are meant to stay locked. Some tables were never meant to be shared. For too long, you made yourself available to people who only knew how to take. You poured into empty vessels that never poured back. You answered calls from people who wouldn't even check on you if you went silent. And yet, they called it love. They called it friendship. They called it loyalty. But the truth? It was a transaction they never intended to pay for. And now that you've changed, now that you've stepped into your inheritance, they don't know what to do. They'll say you've switched up. They'll say you've forgotten where you came from. They'll say you're selfish now. But listen, when you stop giving to those who only know how to take, they call it arrogance. When you start saying no to the wrong people, they call it betrayal. But that's their problem, not yours. Because what they don't understand is that you didn't just change, you evolved. You grew past them. You grew past the smallness they tried to keep you in. You stopped making excuses for people who never deserved to sit at your table in the first place. You realized that peace is not something you have to buy with exhaustion, and love is not something you prove by suffering. And let me tell you something. The ones who loved you for you, they're still here. The ones who never needed a piece of you to feel whole, they still clap for you. The ones who respected you when you had nothing, they celebrate you now that you have something. The rest? Let them be uncomfortable. Let them question it. Let them talk. You owe them nothing. Not an explanation. Not an apology. Not a second thought. Because what's written cannot be erased. What's meant for you cannot be taken away. The door is closed. The chapter is finished. And the only ones who remain in the story are the ones who were meant to be here all along. Not every path is meant to be walked in unison. Growth requires distance, and not all connections are built to endure evolution. Some thrived in an environment where struggle was the common language, where limitations bonded people together. But when that language is no longer spoken, when survival is replaced by certainty, separation becomes inevitable. The ones who preferred the version that doubted, the version that second-guessed, will be the ones who resist the most. They were comfortable with proximity to struggle, but are unsettled by the presence of strength. What was once hidden now stands in the open. The shifting tides have revealed who remained out of sincerity and who stayed only when it served them. Success did not change anything. It merely stripped away the illusions. Some only celebrated when the ascent did not surpass their own. Some stood in support until the distance became too vast for them to follow. Clarity replaces attachment. The energy spent justifying, explaining, accommodating, it is reclaimed. The instinct to shrink, to soften, to ensure others remain at ease, it no longer exists. Scarcity is no longer the framework. The past, filled with careful calculations, with cautious steps, with fear disguised as practicality, is no longer relevant. No more questioning if there is enough. No more hesitation before stepping forward. The belief that struggle was a requirement has been dismantled. There is no return to that space. No more rationing opportunity in fear of running out. The narrative has been rewritten, the old cycle broken. The only direction left is forward. Wealth is no longer a force to be feared, no longer a fragile possession that must be desperately held onto. The fear of loss, of depletion, of watching it all slip away, that fear no longer dictates action. Abundance does not come from control, but from understanding. It is not something to chase, to beg for, to plead with. It responds to certainty. No longer an elusive concept, no longer an external measure, it has become an extension of power, a reflection of internal alignment. What was once seen as fleeting is now understood as inevitable. The separation between past and present is absolute. Old narratives no longer dictate reality. The habits, the inherited mindsets, the deeply ingrained cycles of limitation, they hold no weight here. What was once a life built around endurance has been rewritten into one of intention. No longer shaped by constraints, no longer seeing barriers where there are none. Everything that once seemed impossible is now within reach. And this is only the threshold. The first step into a limitless existence has been taken, and there is no retreat, only expansion. Momentum is unstoppable. The vision that once felt distant is now lived in real time. The world is no longer an idea, no longer a series of places seen through the eyes of others. It is a personal landscape, open, available, no longer bound by hesitation, no longer asking for permission to experience all that life has to offer. Movement is effortless. What was once classified as a luxury is now the standard. The borders, the limits, the restrictions that once seemed so absolute have lost their grip. There is no resistance, no questioning. There is only movement, forward and without hesitation. Abundance is not a reward, it is a right. No longer is there an internal war over whether joy must be justified, whether ease must be earned. The struggle narrative is obsolete. The mind no longer translates success into guilt. no longer hesitates before investing in peace, in well-being, in the experiences that nurture both mind and body. A life that flows freely, without apology, without second-guessing, is not indulgence, it is balance. Every choice is aligned, every moment fully embraced, without the weight of unspoken doubt. A shift has occurred so deep that it cannot be undone. No longer is existence dictated by scarcity, by the instinct to settle for the minimum. The habit of shrinking, of choosing lack out of familiarity, is gone. Every experience, every investment in comfort, in expansion, is a declaration. Survival is no longer the goal. Thriving is. The past version that accepted less, that believed there was virtue in struggle, no longer exists. The new reality is built on abundance, and there is no compromise in choosing the best. Wealth is more than numbers. It is influence. It is structure. It is command. Mastery does not end with accumulation. It extends to protection, to discernment. The understanding is clear. Resources, whether financial or energetic, are not freely available to be drained by those who contribute nothing in return. The doors that once stood open without restriction have been reinforced. No longer is access granted to those who take without thought, who see presence as something to exploit. Every move is intentional, every choice a reflection of wisdom. What has been built is not just temporary prosperity, it is a foundation, unshakable and built to last. Sustained success is built, not given. The ones who once took without offering, who drained without replenishing, who watched but never uplifted, they are no longer within reach. The open doors that once welcomed all have narrowed, allowing only those who bring value, who respect the balance, who give as much as they receive. No longer entangled in cycles of obligation, no longer weighed down by misplaced loyalty. The selection is deliberate. The circle is smaller now, but fortified. What remains is strong, unshaken, undeniable. True power does not seek validation. Wealth is not for spectacle, not for shallow displays. It is a foundation, a fortress, a tool for longevity. Every move is precise, every decision intentional. There is no waste, no reckless pursuit of status, only the steady building of something designed to outlast fleeting moments. The past, the trials, the sacrifices, they were never losses, they were investments. Every challenge endured became the blueprint for stability. What is built now is not just for today, it is a structure meant to stand for generations. Pain has never been a dead end. It has always been raw material for transformation. What once seemed like obstacles became stepping stones. The struggles were not detours, but training, shaping resilience, sharpening focus. There was never a moment of surrender, only recalibration. And now, standing within a reality that once existed only in glimpses, there is no question of how it happened. This was not a gift, not chance, not coincidence. It was the outcome of relentless determination, of unwavering discipline, of seeing beyond temporary hardship into inevitable expansion. Not everyone will understand. Some will wonder, some will whisper, some will doubt. But they were never meant to see the full picture. While others waited, hesitated, searched for certainty, the steps were taken, the risks embraced, the foundation laid. This was never about luck. It was about movement when others stood still. The difference is clear. Waiting for permission was never an option. The vision was carved from patience, strategy, and an unshakable belief in what was possible. Small thinking is not an option. The rules followed by the masses no longer apply. There is no place for limitation, no space for shrinking to fit expectations. Standing in full power means breaking free from imposed ceilings, stepping beyond the ordinary. This is leadership, not in the sense of command, but in the embodiment of what is possible. This is not the end of the journey, but the foundation of something far greater. There is no settling, no slowing, no retreat, only elevation. This moment is not the final destination. It is a launching point. Every action from here shapes something beyond personal success. It carves a legacy, a force that will ripple long after the present moment. Wealth is not something to simply possess. It is something to direct, to expand, to wield with intention. The way forward is not about accumulation. It is about mastery. The impact of these decisions will stretch beyond the present, beyond the self. This is not about what has been gained. It is about what is being built. The old cycles no longer exist. There is no more struggle, no more scarcity, no more waiting for something to change. The shift has already happened. Flow has replaced force. Certainty has replaced hesitation. Power has replaced doubt. The version of existence that once lived in hesitation, in fear, in smallness, it no longer serves a purpose. Now every move is made with precision, with confidence, with the absolute knowing that what has been built cannot be undone. This is not the conclusion. It is the beginning. Let the world witness what transformation truly looks like.